Hey friends, it's Rye Myers here, your Broadway and Entertainment BFF. Thank you so much for tuning in to another digital episode of Live with Rye, my digital talk show series. I'm so excited for today's guest. It's going to be great. But before we begin, as always, listen, I have a huge favor to ask of you. Do me a big favor, subscribe on YouTube, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode of Live with Rye. You never miss an episode of my live Broadway talk show that I do. Everything that I do goes on YouTube pretty much, so hit that subscribe button. And if you're joining on Facebook, leave a thumbs up, let me know that you're watching, and leave a comment as well. And if you get value out of this, please put that in the comments and let me know. I would love that. And with that, I'm so excited to talk with my two guests today. They are part of an incredible musical that is going to make a big splash, and the world's going to be able to experience it in a few weeks. I'm very excited. So please help me welcome the creators and writers of the new musical, Savage the Musical, Nicolette Blount and Lyndall Hart.
Hi.
Hello, Nicolette. Hello, Lyndall.
Hi, great to see you.
Hi, everybody.
So great to see you, too. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to talk with me about Savage. I'm so excited.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Well, Nicolette, why don't we start with you? Tell us a little bit about Savage the Musical and where the idea came from to turn this compelling story into a musical.
So Wanda Savage is my Chickasaw great-grandmother. I am registered Chickasaw. Never judge a book by its cover. And we all are mixed with different things in our soups.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she was a sharpshooter and markswoman in Vaudeville and in the circus. And then she went on to the silent films. She had many, many children, although we only deal with her relationship with my grandfather in the musical. But she was this badass woman. She didn't go by the norms. She wore pants in a time when women were literally arrested for wearing pants. And she ended up sadly in a brothel and then started her life over. And that is my great-grandmother's story. And I just, through a series of events, decided that it was a good time to write a musical about her.
Wow, that is quite the story. Did you ever get the chance to meet your great-grandmother?
No, but the odd thing is my very first birthday. So I grew up in Southern California, and my very first birthday was at her ranch in Wyoming. Sadly, and we deal with this in the musical, she died in her 40s of cancer. So she lived this really full but sad life because she dealt with abuse and misogyny and sexism and racism and like cultural whitewashing and all of these things. But my first birthday was at her ranch, and they have the sign-in book that's still there today. And like, you can see my parents' signatures on my birthday of signing in. And so I have always had this really weird connection with her because, to my knowledge, I'm the only other performer in the family other than her.
Yes.
So yeah.
And so then you obviously came up with the idea, you wrote the book, you helped to write some of the lyrics. Lyndall, how did you come on board as the co-writer?
Well, Nicolette and I met quite a few years ago and have done some performing together. And she had seen an adaptation of Frankenstein that I wrote and performed in as the creature. And she said, hey, you know what? I have this crazy idea that I want to write a musical. Do you want to help me co-write the book? And I was like, sure, let's do it. And she gave me sort of an outline of the story and some information about her great-grandmother's life, showed me a couple of pictures of her. And I think you had a couple of scenes that you had sketched out, I think.
Yeah, I had already had an outline, and I want to say you had a song I had written.
You had a couple of songs, I think.
Yeah.
And I was immediately taken with not only the story, but just it had this kind of dynamic energy to it. And I was like, oh man, that is so exciting. I got to jump on that. And so we started, it was 5 years ago in January, working together. And so we are plowing ahead. And we're in, I think, draft number, let's say 5.
5.5.
5.5,
Yeah,
5 3/4. I don't know.
her story is crazy because although she's Chickasaw and
Uh-huh.
my tribe's language is endangered, and it was very important to me to have some of their language in it, it is not necessarily a Native American musical. It happens to be a Native American woman set in a modern time in the 1920s.
Right.
And what she faced, not only being a woman, but being a Native American woman. So when women got the right to vote, Native American women did not. So she had to deal with all of these things that I think every woman and mother especially can relate with, especially if you're a mother who has drive and wants to do other things in addition to being a mom. But in that time, her choices were very limited. And it seems that a lot of people, I think this is why we have so many streams of our music and so many followers on social media. I think and women in general are really drawn by the story because of her life and what she overcame, and she was a flawed character. She wasn't perfect.
Wow, that's great to hear, and I think that is inspiration for many. And speaking of all of those streams that you have online and all of the music that people have listened to and the draft that you're on, you're actually getting ready to premiere this for people to see in Massachusetts coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about this production happening in Massachusetts?
Yeah, it's kind of like a we're calling it our first developmental production. It's not a regional theater, it's community theater. We're blessed to have a lot of local actors, performers who are very talented. A lot of them are on my EP that's streaming. And so they're in it. And a lot of them have been with the show for a very long time. So it's an opportunity to give them a chance to live out the role, but also for us to see it after 5.5 years. And the theater, they're offering their space for us and everything. So it's just like you can't turn down an opportunity like that. The name of the theater is Jaduke Theater, and it's in Turners Falls, Massachusetts. And it will be 4 shows, April 1 through 3. And then after that, we will be going to where a producer wants to produce a show of ours at 54 Below, and then we're going to have an industry reading, probably all around the same time.
That's really exciting. I love 54 Below here, being in New York. When has that been announced yet, or
no?
That's going to be exciting. Well, I'll definitely come to that. Is the the show happening at in Massachusetts? Is that going to have a lot of the same cast that was with the developmental part in the beginning? Corey Mock, Marissa Rosen, Colin Hanlon. Are they going to be part of this upcoming event?
No, that was our Nymph concert.
Okay.
New York Musical Festival. And no, they are not. It's all community people. This was basically kind of like for our community performers who have worked with us, for us as writers to see it, and for the community that's been supporting us. And then we'll go forward and then we'll be using a lot of the Broadway people after that.
Oh, that's great. Is there a way that people can go and get tickets for this? Or
yes, savagethemusical.com.
Oh, okay, that's great. That's awesome. savagethemusical.com.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk with you, Nicolette, specifically. The Chickasaw Tribe, you've said you're a member of this. What exactly does the tribe represent? Tell me a little bit more about them that we may not know, because I've never heard of them until I heard of Savage the Musical. So do they, I don't want to say stand for something special, but all of these tribes are special, but what about the Chickasaw Tribe stands out? So
the Chickasaw Tribe, they're based in Oklahoma. They were originally part of the Choctaw Tribe, and when they decided to divide from the Choctaw Tribe, and there's a few different stories. There's one that like 2 brothers got mad at each other, and so I'm not really sure exactly, because I've heard a few different stories of why they split from the Choctaws, but they split. And then the Choctaws tried to conquer them, other tribes, France, Spain. And so they started being called the Unconquerable Tribe. And because of that, that's why there's a song on our show called Unconquerable, because I wanted to represent my tribe and how they were this little strong tribe that no one could beat. They had hatchet women that would come out and beat your ass in the middle of oh, am I not supposed to say that on YouTube?
Oh, you can. Do whatever you want.
They would come out and beat your ass in the middle of a war, if it got bad. Here comes the hatchet women. So they're just like really strong people. they're very proud of the fact that they were the first tribe to like sign the treaty with George Washington. And at that time, George Washington, out of all the presidents, was really kind of peaceful with the Native Americans, and they had alliances. But unfortunately, after George Washington, everything went to crap, and all the treaties were not, they weren't followed, they weren't recognized anymore. But my tribe is proud of the fact that they signed this treaty with George Washington, that they fought him alongside the Americans. But unfortunately, the cause and effect of that is that we are very, very mixed. We have a handful of elders who are 100% Chickasaw. One just died. We all look, and that's part of, I guess, my education as I go to talk shows or interviews or whatever, is that, you know, just because you don't look Chickasaw or look Native American, or as our governor says, just because you're a certain percentage of Chickasaw, no, if you're Chickasaw, period. And I think a lot of that is because we're so mixed. And unfortunately, you know, the same thing that they did in terms of like signing this treaty to become American has also really mixed our tribe, and we've lost our language. We are literally on the endangered language list, and that's kind of sad.
Yeah, that is really sad. What is the language called?
It's I believe it's a Musk Creek language. It's part Choctaw, part Chickasaw. So some of our words like halito, which is hello in Choctaw, is also Chickasaws use it sometime, but mostly we use Chocmaw. So there's some mixing of that. Yeah.
Amazing. I love that. And Lyndall, what did you learn? What have you learned about the Chickasaw Tribe, but also just about this show in general from working on it?
Well, a lot. Like you, I wasn't. I'd heard of the Chickasaw Tribe, but I really didn't know anything about them. And this has really given me a lot more insight into not just the Chickasaw experience, but the Native American experience in this country. And it has certainly impressed upon me the need to preserve the cultures of the Native American tribes wherever we can. So when we were discussing elements that we wanted to put into the show, having language that was non-English incorporated into it was really important. So we have made a very concentrated effort to bring some of the Chickasaw language into some of the scenes, and do our part to preserve it in that way. It's a far cry from keeping, from spreading the language and making it grow, but at least it helps keep it alive a bit. And it's beautiful to hear, when I've heard the actors actually speaking it, it's just an amazing thing to think of. This language is still with us.
Yeah.
And we're doing, something to help keep it, to preserve it. Wow. So, yeah.
We have like 65 words in the show, and we do it in a way that, like, if Homohuta, Wanda's mother, says minty ba, and she goes like this, minty ba, that she's saying come here, because you see Wanda run over to her. So we've done it in a way that there's small chunks of words where there's an action associated, so people get it. Or if someone says chokma, the other person says hello. So we've tried to do it in a way that, like, if someone doesn't know the language, they can easily understand it.
Yeah, it's pretty organic.
Yeah.
That's important. I think that that's a great way to do it. And I like that approach that you've taken with it. Now, in creating this musical, what is advice that you can give to someone who is thinking about developing a musical? I mean, you've done this from literally start to, I don't want to say finished, because you're still in that almost finished phase, but you kind of are finished. Well, talk to me about developing a musical like this. What have you learned? How did you get people on board? Are you lead producing? What was that like? Because I know there's so many, especially nowadays with things being open again, people are excited to get work out there. What has that process been like to literally create and come up with this brand new musical from paper to to stage?
Lyndall?
Whoever.
Okay, I'll start off. It's really exciting. It's a challenge, obviously.
Mhm.
But my advice to anyone who's considering doing a project like this, or even something really small, like a one-person show, just start writing it, start performing it in your own bedroom, and let it start to have a life of its own. Because the only way that you can begin something is to actually begin it. If you just think about it all the time, it's not going to happen.
That's right.
And so that's the first piece of advice that I would give, is just do it, because no one else is going to do it for you. And then the other thing is, I think, learn as much of the craft as you can from talking and interacting with other people in the field. Take classes where you can, take a playwriting class, take a music writing class, take a history of theater class if you need to, but start educating yourself and start networking, because the more people you meet, and Nicolette has done a brilliant job of networking and meeting people in the industry. Otherwise we wouldn't have gotten as far as we have. So I think just be open to talking with anyone and everyone about the work that you're doing.
I would say, where there is fear, there is no creativity. That is my favorite quote.
Yeah.
So kind of going along what Lyndall says, you have to just do it.
Mhm.
You shouldn't second guess yourself.
Right.
I myself hate schmoozing. I'm really outgoing, but I just hate schmoozing, and I hate talking about like, oh, here's my musical, blah, blah, blah. So if you find someone who is in the business and really loves your musical, invite them to everything that you go to, and then they can brag about you, and you don't have to do it yourself. That would be one. And then you don't seem like the weird writer who's like, oh, let me show you my musical. Let me show you my musical. Someone else is doing. But also, yeah, like just do it. And also do it the way that you want to do it, because I've been told that my music does not sound like typical musical theater music. And I'm fine with that. And people have said it in a good way. Like they say, oh, all your songs are bops and they don't sound like typical musical theater. And so it's fresh. And I love that, because my goal is that when I write a song, I want it to be able to be played on a radio station and someone doesn't know it's from musical theater, because then we're going to draw more people to the seats. So we're going to have new fans. We're going to have new people liking musical theater who didn't before. And that's so important. So I wouldn't be afraid of, like, we had a producer ask us one time, well, what genre of music is it? It's pop infused jazz and blues with some rock and roll. I mean, it's like, make your own genre.
I love it.
They say there's not one way to do Broadway. So, and that's the other thing too. Like we've kind of gone by the beat of our own drum. And where there's a will, there's a way, and never, ever, 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 ever give up. Because the minute you give up, like Lyndall said, no one's going to do this for you.
Right.
Wow. That is really, that is the truth. That never give up. And that just lit a fire under my bottom even more.
I see the smoke.
Yes. Even more. Sometimes you need to hear that. That is so important. Really, really important. Well, I want to continue to chat with you more. You'll have to come back another time. I know, Nicolette, you have to go to rehearsal. But before we finish up, as I said, you're welcome back anytime. And I can't wait to see what comes with this and when this is in New York. But let's keep up with you. Where can we follow Savage the Musical? What's the website? What's the social medias? Where can we keep up with all of you?
So savagemusical.com. And then we're streaming on Spotify and iTunes and Amazon Music, all the streaming places. So far we have like 10,000 streams, and we don't even have a record label. So it's crazy. And not Broadway people either. And then as far as like socials, we're on Instagram, Savage the Musical. My Twitter is kind of dying, but everything else is good. Facebook, Savage the Musical, YouTube, Savage the Musical, all the things. TikTok.
Yeah, you've got a great Instagram presence. That's where we connected.
So do you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Twitter is its strange beast.
It is.
It's that it dies and goes up. And in fact, I laugh, funny story, I just really post things on there just so it looks good all around, right? I usually
Yes.
Instagram is my main one, but I put it on Twitter, I put it on Facebook. So there's consistency and everything. I feel like Amos Hart on there sometimes. I put stuff on there when people don't notice it. No one does. And then 3 days ago, I posted a picture of the Funny Girl banner going up, with the marquee going up. And all of a sudden it's got 450 likes
So
and
crazy.
and 157 likes on Instagram, and Twitter is like, 3 people are quote tweeting it. I'm like, what the?
Yeah. I don't like Twitter because it's not as visual as like Instagram. Like I feel like for artists, Instagram is so visual. And then I've been told that Facebook is for old people. So I'm trying not to be old, although I am. So trying not to be.
I mean, this also streams to Facebook as well as YouTube. So there's lots of you still with
Yeah.
it. Well, I would love to talk with you again. Please come back. There's so much
Absolutely.
more to talk about. I'm glad we got to give this little preview to people.
Yeah. We'll invite you to the industry reading for sure.
Yes, please do. And for those of you who are up in the area who can go and see Savage the musical at what's the name of the theater again?
Leduc Theater in Turners Falls, Massachusetts.
In Turners Falls, Massachusetts. Get up there and see it, because you can see it before it really makes a splash, and that's something unique for sure.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.